Have you ever held an old coin in your hand? It feels like holding a piece of history. Coins are more than just money. They are tiny metal storybooks, whispering tales of kings, queens, battles and empires. For over 2,000 years, people in Britain have used coins to buy and sell things. But these coins also carried messages. They were the original social media, spreading the image of a new ruler across the land. Each scratch, each worn-down face tells a story of the many hands it has passed through. They are little survivors, outlasting the people who made them and the kingdoms they served. This is the story of Britain, told through its most valuable and fascinating coins. Imagine a Roman soldier in a windswept fort in the north of England. He might have used a silver denarius to buy his dinner. Centuries later, a Tudor merchant in London would pay for spices with a golden sovereign, its design celebrating a powerful new dynasty. Every coin is a direct link to a moment in time. They show us what people valued, who was in charge, and what they believed. The metals they are made from, whether gold, silver or bronze, tell us about the wealth and resources of the kingdom. Following the journey of these coins is like walking through the grand corridors of British history, with each coin a key unlocking another door to the past. Collecting coins is a way of becoming a custodian of this history. Some coins are incredibly rare, perhaps because only a few were ever made. Others are valuable because of a mistake in their creation, a tiny detail that makes them unique. And some are precious simply because they are so beautiful, miniature works of art that have been treasured for centuries. We will explore some of these famous coins, like the legendary double leopard and the stunning Una and the lion. We will discover why a simple penny from 1933 could be worth a fortune and what makes these pieces of metal so desirable to collectors around the world. So, let us begin our journey. We will travel back in time to the Iron Age, when Celtic tribes first started making their own strange and wonderful coins. We will march with the Romans as they brought their own currency to the new province of Britannia. We will see how Anglo-Saxon kings and Viking warriors used coins to build their kingdoms. This is a story of power, art and identity, stamped onto small, round pieces of metal. Prepare to uncover the secrets hidden in the pockets and purses of the past, as we explore the most valuable coins in British history. Long before the Romans arrived, Britain was a land of powerful Celtic tribes. Around 2,000 years ago, these tribes began to make the very first coins used on the island. They were inspired by coins from Europe, but they gave them their own unique and artistic style. Instead of realistic portraits of rulers, Celtic coins were covered in mysterious and abstract designs. You might see swirling patterns, strange beasts, and, most famously, a disjointed horse. These early coins, called staters, were often made of gold or silver. They were not just for buying things, they were symbols of a chieftain's power and wealth, used to pay warriors and make important gifts. These early Celtic coins are incredibly special because they are our first glimpse into the art and symbolism of Iron Age Britain. The designs are so different from what we think of as a coin today. The famous Gallo-Belgic E-stater, for example, features a simple stylized horse on one side and a blank smooth surface on the other. Later designs became more complex, with hidden faces and animals tucked into the patterns. Finding one of these coins is like discovering a lost piece of ancient art. They are rare and valuable because they connect us directly to the mysterious world of the Celts, before written history truly began in Britain. Then, in AD 43, everything changed. The Roman army invaded and conquered Britain. They brought with them their own highly organized system of money. Roman coins were completely different from the Celtic ones. They were mass-produced and featured realistic portraits of the emperor. This was clever propaganda. Every time someone used a coin, they were reminded of who was in charge, even if they were hundreds of miles from Rome. Coins with emperors like Claudius, Hadrian and Constantine have been found all over Britain, from bustling towns to the ruins of remote forts along Hadrian's Wall. They tell a story of a new power and a new world. Roman coins are a window into the life of Roman Britain. A bronze sestertius could buy a loaf of bread, while a silver denarius was a soldier's daily pay. The images on the back of the coins, known as the reverse, celebrated Roman victories, gods, and architectural achievements. Sometimes, special coins were made specifically about Britain. For instance, coins were struck with the figure of Britannia on them after a successful military campaign, showing Britain as a conquered province. These coins are valuable today not just for their age, but because they are tangible evidence of the Roman Empire's vast reach and its lasting impact on the island of Britain. After the Romans left Britain around the year 410, things got a bit chaotic. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms began to form, and for a while coins almost disappeared. People went back to trading goods directly, but slowly coins returned. At first, tiny gold coins called thrimsis appeared, often copying Roman designs. But the real story of this era is written in silver. By the 700s, a new coin dominated England, the silver penny. For the next 500 years, the penny would be the backbone of the English economy. Early pennies were thick and chunky, and they are known today as sciatas. They had all sorts of wonderful designs, including strange beasts, birds, and distorted human faces. These early silver pennies tell the story of the birth of England. As powerful kings like Offa of Mercia rose to prominence, they began to put their own names and portraits on their coins. This was a huge statement. It showed they had the power and authority to control the money supply, just like the Roman emperors before them. An Offa penny is a treasure for collectors because it represents a key moment in the unification of England. Later, Viking invaders arrived, and they too began to make their own silver pennies in the areas they controlled, like York. These coins often mixed Viking and Christian symbols, showing how the two cultures were clashing and blending. The most famous Anglo-Saxon king, Alfred the Great, used coins as a weapon in his fight against the Vikings. He reformed the currency, making a new, heavier silver penny. Crucially, his coins were of a reliable weight and purity. He also created coins that featured his portrait alongside a monogram for London, celebrating his recapture of the city. One of the rarest and most incredible coins from this period is the Alfred the Great Two Emperors penny. It shows Alfred and his Mercian ally, Ceolwulf II, sitting side by side, symbolizing their alliance against the Vikings. It's a powerful political statement on a tiny piece of silver. The value of these coins today comes from their rarity and their immense historical importance. Many Anglo-Saxon and Viking coins are unique, with only one known example surviving. They were often buried in the ground for safekeeping in hoards, which are sometimes discovered by metal detectorists today. Each hoard tells the story of a time of crisis when someone buried their life savings and never returned to reclaim them. Coins like the silver pennies of Eric Bloodaxe, the last Viking king of York, are incredibly sought after. They are the final echoes of a violent but formative period in British history when the foundations of a single English kingdom were being laid. In 1066, William the Conqueror and his Norman army invaded England. This event changed everything, including the coins. William kept the silver penny, but he made the designs much more standardized. For the next few hundred years, most pennies looked very similar. They had a portrait of the king on the front and a large cross on the back. This cross was very practical. If you needed to pay a smaller amount, you could literally cut the penny in half or into quarters along the lines of the cross. These cut pieces are known as halfpennies and farthings. This system, while simple, shows how everyday people interacted with money in the medieval period. As we move through the Middle Ages, the coins begin to tell a story of England's growing confidence and wealth. In 1257, King Henry III tried to introduce a gold coin known as the gold penny. It was beautiful, showing the king enthroned, but it was not a success as its value was set incorrectly. However, it was a sign of things to come. The real breakthrough came in 1344 with King Edward III. He introduced one of the most famous and valuable British coins ever made, the gold double leopard. It was a large, beautiful coin worth 6 shillings. It showed the king sitting on his throne, flanked by 2 leopards' heads. It was a magnificent failure, quickly withdrawn from circulation, and only 3 are known to exist today. The Tudor period, which began with Henry VII in 1485, brought a golden age of coinage. Henry VII introduced a spectacular new gold coin called the sovereign. It was the largest coin yet made in England and was designed to impress. It showed the king in full majestic glory on his throne, with the Tudor rose on the back. This was pure propaganda, a coin designed to show that a new, powerful dynasty was in charge after the long and bloody Wars of the Roses. His son, Henry VIII, continued to issue magnificent coins, although he also famously debased the currency, mixing cheaper metals with the silver to pay for his extravagant lifestyle. The portraits on Tudor coins are what make them so fascinating. For the first time, we see realistic likenesses of the monarchs. You can trace the life of Henry VIII through his coins, from a handsome young prince to the bloated, imposing figure of his later years. Coins of his children are just as revealing. The coins of Edward VI show a young boy, while those of Mary I sometimes feature her husband, Philip of Spain. The coins of Elizabeth I project an image of power and eternal youth, the iconic Virgin Queen. These coins are valuable not just for their gold and silver content, but because they are the official portraits of some of history's most compelling characters. When Queen Elizabeth I died in 1603, the throne passed to her cousin, James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. For the first time, the crowns of England and Scotland were united under one monarch. The coins immediately reflected this historic moment. James I issued new coins with inscriptions like Faciam eos ingentem unam, which means, I will make them one nation. The designs combined the English lion with the Scottish thistle. This was a powerful message of unity, sent to every corner of the new Great Britain. Coins like the gold unite and the silver shilling were handled by people every day, constantly reinforcing the idea of a single kingdom. This period also saw major innovations in how coins were made. For centuries, coins had been made by hand, hammered between two dies. This meant they were often irregular in shape and, well, easy to clip, where dishonest people would shave a little bit of silver from the edge. But during the reign of Charles I, a new technology arrived, the milling machine. This produced perfectly round coins with decorated edges, making them much harder to counterfeit or clip. However, the old and new methods existed side by side for quite a long time, as the machinery was expensive and slow. This transition period gives us a fascinating glimpse into the industrial changes that were just beginning to stir. The most dramatic event of the Stuart era was the English Civil War. This conflict between King Charles I and Parliament tore the country apart, and the coinage tells the story in vivid detail. As the king moved around the country, he set up temporary mints in towns like Oxford and Shrewsbury to pay his army. He melted down silver plates donated by his wealthy supporters to make new coins. These siege pieces are some of the rarest and most interesting coins in British history. They were often crudely made, sometimes cut into diamond or rectangular shapes from a piece of silver plate, and simply stamped with a castle and the coin's value. They are desperate money made in a time of crisis. After the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, King Charles II issued a magnificent new range of machine-made coins. These included the famous crown, a large silver coin that became a symbol of the restored kingdom. The portrait of Charles II on these coins is full of life and confidence. This era also saw the introduction of a new gold coin, the guinea, which was named after the Guinea coast of West Africa, where much of the gold was sourced. The coins of the Stuart period are so valuable because they chart a course through one of Britain's most turbulent centuries, a story of union, civil war and restoration, all told in gold and silver. The 18th century, the age of the Georgians, was a time of great change and growing prosperity for Britain. The empire was expanding and trade was booming. However, the official coinage was in a terrible state. The royal mint was not producing enough small change, and the silver coins in circulation were often worn out, centuries-old, hammered pieces. This led to a huge problem for shopkeepers and ordinary people. To solve this, private businesses and towns began to produce their own copper tokens. These tokens were beautifully designed, showing local buildings, famous people and political slogans. They are a fascinating snapshot of everyday life and local pride in Georgian Britain. The official gold coinage, however, was as splendid as ever. The gold guinea, first introduced by Charles II, remained the principal gold coin. Its value fluctuated with the price of gold, but it was eventually fixed at 21 shillings. The famous spade guinea of George III, so-called because the shield on the back looks a bit like a garden spade, is an iconic coin of the period. It represents the stability and confidence of Britain on the world stage. These gold coins were the currency of the wealthy, used for large transactions, land deals, and international trade. They were a symbol of Britain's growing economic might. The biggest change in coinage came at the very end of this period, in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars. In 1816, Britain undertook the Great Recoinage. This was a massive project to replace all the old, worn-out silver coins with a brand new, steam-powered, machine-made currency. The silver content of the coins was slightly reduced, meaning the coin's value was no longer just based on the metal it contained. This was the beginning of modern fiat currency. A beautiful new silver crown coin was designed by an Italian artist, Benedetto Pistrucci, featuring his masterpiece, a dramatic image of St. George slaying the dragon. This design was an instant classic. This great recoinage set the standard for British money for the next 150 years. The new coins included the silver crown, half crown, shilling and sixpence. A new gold coin, the sovereign, was also introduced in 1817, replacing the guinea. It was worth £1 or 20 shillings, and it also featured Pistrucci's iconic St. George and the dragon design. This image has been used on the sovereign ever since, a testament to its enduring power and beauty. The coins of the late Georgian era are so important because they represent the birth of the modern monetary system we know today, forged in the new industrial age. Queen Victoria's reign from 1837 to 1901 was the longest in British history up to that point. It was an age of incredible industrial, cultural and imperial expansion. The coins from this era perfectly reflect this story of a nation at the peak of its power. Victoria's portrait on her coins aged with her. We see her first as a young girl, then as a married queen, and finally as the veiled widow at Windsor, after the death of her beloved husband, Prince Albert. These portraits, seen by her subjects across a vast global empire, made her one of the most recognizable figures in the world. The coins were a constant reminder of the monarch and the stability she represented. The Victorian era produced some of the most beautiful and sought-after coins in British history. One of the most famous is the Una and the Lion £5 gold piece, struck in 1839 to celebrate the beginning of her reign. It is widely considered to be one of the most beautiful coins ever made. On one side is a delicate portrait of the young queen. On the other, she is shown as the character Una from a famous poem, guiding a powerful lion which represents England. It was a bold and artistic statement of a young woman leading a powerful nation. Only a few hundred were made, making them incredibly rare and valuable today. Another fascinating coin from this period is the Gothic crown of 1847. This large silver coin has a very medieval or Gothic style. The Queen is shown wearing a crown for the first time on her coinage, and the lettering is in an old-fashioned Gothic script. It was another artistic triumph, designed to evoke a sense of history and tradition during a time of rapid modernization. The edge of the coin is inscribed with the words decus et tutamen, meaning an ornament and a safeguard, a feature designed to prevent clipping. These large, impressive silver crowns were more for show than for everyday use, but they perfectly capture the romantic spirit of the Victorian age. The coins of the Victorian era were also the currency of a global empire. Sovereigns minted in London were used alongside identical sovereigns struck at branch mints in Australia, India and Canada. They were a trusted international currency, a gold standard for world trade. The humble bronze penny, with its seated figure of Britannia on the back, was also used from the Caribbean to the Pacific. For collectors, Victorian coins offer a huge variety. From the tiny silver threepence to the magnificent £5 piece, each coin is a miniature piece of Victorian art and a symbol of an era when British influence, carried in pockets and purses, reached every corner of the globe. The 20th century brought unprecedented change to Britain, and its coins reflect this turbulent history. The century began with the short reign of Edward VII, followed by George V. The coins from this period, particularly the gold sovereign and the large silver crown, continued the grand Victorian tradition. However, the immense cost of the First World War changed everything. By 1920, Britain could no longer afford to make its silver coins from real silver. The silver content was reduced to 50%, with the rest being a cheaper alloy. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the intrinsic value of the metal in the coins was far less than their face value. It was a sign of a changing economic reality. One of the most famous stories in British coinage comes from this period, the tale of the 1933 penny. In the early 1930s, there were already so many pennies in circulation that the Royal Mint decided not to produce any for general use in 1933. However, a very small number, believed to be just 7, were made for ceremonial purposes, to be placed under the foundations of new buildings. Because of this extreme rarity, the 1933 penny has become a legendary coin. Its story captures the imagination of collectors everywhere. It's not valuable because it's made of gold or is particularly beautiful, but simply because it is incredibly, vanishingly rare. The Second World War brought even more drastic changes. In 1947, silver was removed from the nation's circulating coinage altogether and replaced with a copper-nickel alloy, known as cupro-nickel. This was the end of an era that had lasted since Anglo-Saxon times. The demands of post-war reconstruction meant that precious metals were needed elsewhere. The old coins, which had felt like solid, real money, were replaced by something that looked and felt different. The reign of George VI also saw the introduction of a new 12-sided brass threepence coin, which was popular because it was easy to distinguish by feel from other coins. The biggest single change to coinage in the 20th century happened on 15th February 1971, Decimalisation Day. The old, complicated system of pounds, shillings and pence, with its 240 pence to the pound, was swept away. It was replaced by a new, simpler decimal system, with 100 new pence to the pound. This was a huge cultural shift. An entire population had to learn a new way of thinking about money. New coins were introduced, like the 50 pence, 10 pence and 5 pence, while the old pennies and shillings were gradually withdrawn. This event marked the final step in the creation of the modern currency system we use in Britain today. The reign of Queen Elizabeth II, which began in 1952, has been the longest in British history. Her coinage tells the story of Britain in the modern age. Her first coins followed the old pounds, shillings and pence system. But since decimalisation in 1971, her portrait has graced the decimal coins we use every day. Just like Queen Victoria, her portrait has been updated over the years, showing her mature from a young queen to a respected and long-reigning monarch. 5 different portraits have appeared on her circulating coins, a numismatic journey that has mirrored the life of the nation for over 7 decades. The coins of Queen Elizabeth II have also been used to celebrate great national moments. Commemorative coins, especially the 50 pence and £2 coins, have become incredibly popular. These coins mark everything from royal weddings and jubilees to the Olympic Games and anniversaries of famous books like Peter Rabbit and the Gruffalo. They have turned coin collecting from a niche hobby into something that everyone can participate in. People check their change, hoping to find a rare Kew Gardens 50 pence or a special edition £2 coin. These coins are the modern equivalent of the Roman coins celebrating a victory. They are small pieces of history that tell us what we as a nation choose to remember and celebrate. The value in modern coins often comes from rarity or design errors, just like in the past. The 2009 Kew Gardens 50 pence is valuable because only 210,000 were minted, making it the rarest 50 pence in circulation. Another famous example is the dateless 20 pence coin from 2008. A mistake at the Royal Mint meant a batch of 20 pence coins was struck without a date on them for the first time in over 300 years. These error coins are now highly sought after by collectors. Following the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, the first coins featuring the portrait of King Charles III entered circulation, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Britain's long and fascinating story of coinage. So what do coins tell us about Britain? They are a timeline you can hold in your hand. They show the rise and fall of kingdoms, the changing face of our monarchs, and the evolution of our identity from Celtic tribes to a modern, multicultural nation. They track our artistic styles, our technological innovations, and our economic fortunes. Whether it is a Roman denarius dug up from a field, a golden Tudor sovereign, or a modern commemorative 50 pence found in your change, each coin is a witness to its time. They are tiny, durable treasures that carry the story of Britain forward, connecting us to the millions of people who have come before us.